The Rangers traded their 2023 Pitcher of the Year away. We're talking about that, Rowdy Tellez getting called up, and what the heck this Rangers team needs to do in the second half to make the postseason. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covered this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, I'm talking about the Dane Dunning trade, Jon Gray's return being imminent, Rowdy Tellez making his Rangers debut this weekend, and what the heck this Rangers team needs to do in the second half. Before we get into all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now, the Rangers made a trade during the All-Star break. They made several roster moves during the All-Star break, which, not cool. Can y'all just chill? But it also gives me content to talk about today. That is not me talking about a billion miles an hour about 172 different prospects. If you haven't checked out my top 30 prospect rankings from this week, or listen to my draft recap show, if you want to learn about prospects, this is the week for you. But we're not talking about prospects right now. We're talking about big league trades. Dane Dunning, the Texas Rangers 2023 Pitcher of the Year, traded to the Atlanta Braves for reliever Jose Ruiz and cash considerations. Now, just that on the surface of the guy who won the Rangers Pitcher of the Year award, the year of the only championship in franchise history, just feels wild. But it's also wild that Dane Dunning was the Rangers Pitcher of the Year in 2023. Not to say it wasn't deserved, but it was just one of those weird quirks that shows you how odd of a year it was in 2023 and how much had to go right for this team to win the World Series. Now, Dane Dunning was truly fantastic in that first half. He stepped up for Jacob deGrom when he went on the IL multiple different times when Jacob deGrom left games in early 2023. Dane Dunning stepped in and was fantastic. In the first half, he had 92 innings and a 2.84 ERA. The second half numbers were not as good, but he led this team in innings, and he did not allow a single earned run in the World Series. He also had 2 very crucial innings in that first game of the ALDS, a game where the Rangers went with a tag team combo of Andrew Heaney and Dane Dunning in that sweep of the Baltimore Orioles in Baltimore, coming off of a series where they just swept the Rays. I mean, this was a very important part of this club for the last several years. But last year, he was awful. I mean, truly awful. And this year, he was just fine. He'd had some good outings as of late, and I'm a little surprised that this ends up being his fate because, the last couple of games that he had pitched, he did allow a solo shot in a blowout game, finishing off a game against the Angels. He did have a couple of 3-inning saves actually this year. One against Baltimore. He had a 2-inning outing and another blowout of the Angels earlier this month. But I'm just a little shocked that this was the way Dane Dunning's tenure ended. He was an important part of this Rangers team, and it came down to money, really. That's kind of what it is coming down to with Dane Dunning. Even though he pitched 172 2/3 innings in that 2023 World Series year, last year he had a ERA north of 5, and he almost looked a little bit worse than that. But still, it's a happy trails. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for that World Series, Dane Dunning. Although it wasn't entirely Dane Dunning's contribution that made that happen, it still could not have been done without Dunning. And so for that, I tip my hat to Dane Dunning. What a massive win that Lance Lynn trade ended up being, that it didn't seem like it would be at first. But happy trails. And it opens up a 40-man roster spot, which is going to be filled by Jon Gray. He is on the cusp of returning after a broken wrist that he suffered early on this year. He's planning to throw 60 pitches on Saturday, whether that is with AAA Round Rock in, I believe, Vegas they are in this weekend, or if it's going to be with the Frisco Rough Riders in Frisco, I think that is significantly more likely that he would pitch there in a much more pitching-friendly environment than Las Vegas or just the PCL in general. He's going to throw those 60 pitches on Saturday, and then it will be determined whether he is going to be a starter or a reliever. At this point in the Rangers rotation, it seems like they're going to stick with the guys that are there right now, with Leiter, with Rocker. Those two would be the first ones that would be replaced in the rotation if they decide that Jon Gray is going to be a starter. I don't know that that's the most likely scenario right now. I think that he could help them more in this bullpen that is very good, but also very heavily taxed and does need, I think, some reinforcements. And it could lead to the Rangers shipping off a reliever. I don't think more than one at the deadline, even if they do decide to be buyers. I mean, they've got some decent relievers that have just had a big workload, and adding Jon Gray, this fresh arm there, and also Josh Sborz, who is on the way to returning. He is starting a rehab assignment soon and will be back, I believe, maybe by the end of this month, maybe even before the calendar turns August. But Jon Gray returning is a huge thing. Remember what he did in his few relief appearances that he'd had. Look at what he did in that World Series, that Game 3 that the Rangers won just barely in a 1-1 series of Game 3 of the World Series. Jon Gray was exceptional there. He was exceptional in Game 1 as well. I mean, Jon Gray was a very important part of that Rangers World Series run, and he was a consistent starter for the first 3 years of his time in Texas. He wasn't amazing last year. He had some moments in relief where he just looked downright nasty, and he might have some of the nastiest stuff in this pen if he gets put in this Rangers bullpen. And you switch out a Luke Jackson for a Jon Gray. Maybe you ship off a Jacob Webb and call up Josh Sborz, and then you look at the rest of this pen all the way up and down, and it's a really good bullpen. There's not any elite arm, and maybe that might end up biting the Rangers in October, should the Rangers even get there. But adding Jon Gray to this pen and having the option to move him into this rotation if one of Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker starts to falter, which they've shown moments of brilliance and moments of poo-poo this season because they're rookies. They're both 25 years old. They're both pretty darn young, and they still have a ways to go in their development, but they've also shown a higher ceiling than much of anything that Jon Gray has done for his time in Texas and heck, even his time in the big league. Not to denigrate Jon Gray, but there's also an option that the Rangers could end up just putting Jon Gray on their roster and then moving him at the deadline. I don't think that would be the best option unless the Rangers are just completely out of it, which kind of will be determined in this homestand, this 9-game homestand, which is so incredibly important. But having those options with Jon Gray returning of whether he's going to be a starter or reliever, having, just that flexibility of what kind of a role he's going to end up playing on this team this year, I think he's going to play an important role. And the Rangers are going to need a healthy and good Jon Gray. I think the best version of Jon Gray is him in this bullpen, ramping that fastball that doesn't have that great of properties all the way up into the upper 90s as opposed to just, 93 to 95. If that's, more 96, 98, even though it's a little bit flat, even though it's not very deceptive, pairing that with his just absolutely diabolical slider, which he should throw probably 80% of the time if he's coming out of the pen, I think that could be a nasty relief ace, which this Rangers team has not had in quite some time. I've loved what I've seen when he has been in that role, and I think that is going to be the role that he plays with this team down the stretch. But this team doesn't just need pitching. They need a little bit of help on the offense, and they are getting some offensive reinforcements, unfortunately, because of an injury to Jake Berger that is worse than we initially thought. We're going to talk about who's coming up, what they bring to this Rangers team, and why it's not exactly the most encouraging thing, even though it might help in the short term. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Let's look at some of these odds for the Rangers to make the postseason in 2025. According to FanDuel, yes is plus 350, no is minus 450. So they are favored to not win this, not make the postseason. In terms of the AL West odds, the Rangers are 8.5 games back of the Houston Astros in the standings. Right now, the Astros minus 430 to win the AL West. Mariners, who are 5 games back, are plus 380. Rangers at plus 2,200. That might be a little bit out of reach, but they've got all kinds of different odds on FanDuel. So go check it out. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Shout out to everybody to be Locked On Rangers, your first listen every single day. On Monday's show, I'll be back talking about this first series of the post-All-Star break of the second half. A tough series against the Detroit Tigers, which hopefully the Rangers can get themselves out to a nice start in this second half. But Jon Gray wasn't the only injury that is the only injured player down in the minor league, just not playing on the Texas Rangers right now. Jake Burger has been placed on the IL, retroactive to Sunday, but he is going to miss more than those allotted 15 days or 10 days on the 10-day IL. He is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks at this point with a right quad strain. He came out of the game on Friday against the Houston Astros after pulling up on trying to run out an infield ground out. Ended up not being successful in that, got pulled, stayed in the game for an inning, and then got pulled later. Then he pinch hit on Saturday, which it did not go particularly well. He just recorded an out and then ended up coming out of that game anyway, which not ideal for Jake Burger. But the Rangers had to call somebody up. They have decided to go with surely will go with the platoon, even though they are saying that they're hoping that it's not a platoon. But Rowdy Tellez, who the Rangers signed to a minor league deal a couple of weeks ago, he had spent most of this season with the Seattle Mariners, a little bit in the minor leagues with the Rangers in Round Rock. And his numbers were fine in Round Rock, but not particularly incredible. He played 4 games. He had he had 2 homers in those 4 games. I mean, the numbers were good, but again, it's 4 games. Overall with Seattle this year, played in 62 games, 185 plate appearances, 11 homers, but a 208 average and a 249 on base percentage. Rowdy Tellez is here to do one thing and one thing only: hit dingers off right-handed pitchers. That's what Rowdy Tellez does. That is basically all Rowdy Tellez does. He is a first baseman / DH, more likely just a DH. And Bochy said, "Oh, he's hoping it's not a platoon," because the other half of that move is bringing up Justin Foscue to hit against lefties, because Rowdy Tellez, like I said, he's here to do one thing and one thing only: hit dingers against right-handed pitching. Because against left-handed pitching this year, and really for his career, he has been awful. This year, especially awful. 13 plate appearances this year, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts, nearly half the time he's striking out, and then has gotten hit by a pitch once, so that helps his OBP against lefties. But he has not done well against lefties in his career, especially not this year. It hasn't been as egregious in the past. For his career, 300 games against lefties, a little bit shy of 500 plate appearances there, a 679 OPS versus a 748 OPS against righties. Now, Tellez has bounced around for a few teams the last couple of years. He is not a guy who is going to hit for a lot of average. He has had seasons in the past where he's walked, but really he's just here to hit home runs. His best season of his career was back in 2022 with Milwaukee. He had 35 home runs, 23 doubles, a 767 OPS in 153 games with the Brewers. And then last year with Pittsburgh, he played 132 games there, 13 bombs though, and a sub 700 OPS. And the year before that with 2023, he had a 677 OPS, 13 bombs in 106 games. So it's when he's not hitting home runs, he's not providing a whole lot of value, has not had a high walk rate the last couple of years. In a really great year in 2022, he had a higher walk rate, but still, even that year, he had a 306 OBP and a batting average of 219. This is a guy who was just here for the one thing, and he can get hot in a hurry. We saw that with Seattle. He had a stretch of 8 games where he had 4 home runs, 4 of his 11 or so on the year this year. And we'll see. I mean, the numbers underlying his actual numbers look pretty good. His barrel rate is the top 5% of baseball, launch angle, sweep spot, bat speed, hard hit rate, average exit velo, expected slugging, all of that in the top quarter of baseball. But he chases a whole lot. He swings and misses a whole lot. He does not walk. He strikes out a whole lot. It's a guy who the Rangers are kind of hoping to catch fire for a couple weeks or 3 weeks until Jake Burger comes back. But because of this, the only reason that he's really getting this chance right now is because Josh Jung's in the minor leagues, and hasn't done particularly well in the first 5 games that he's had there in Round Rock. They are trying to fix that approach, the approach that he has been chasing like crazy, not walking at all, not really tapping into that power in the last month and a half, basically since the calendar turned to June. Josh Jung has just not hit for any power, and he's been chasing balls way out of the zone. And so they're hoping some time in the minor leagues can kind of help that. And if Josh Jung was right and, playing, then he would be at third base every day. It would be Josh Smith at first base every day. And I guess the Rangers would keep platooning their catchers as the DHs, which I don't love because Jock Peterson is still on the IL, still a little ways away from even being able to swing a bat, let alone come back. I don't think he's going to be back until maybe mid-August at this point. I mean, we'll see. He's still 4 to 6 weeks away from swinging a bat a couple weeks ago when we got an update there. So, it's not ideal, this being the solution, but hey, maybe it'll help. Maybe Rowdy Tellez will catch fire for a couple weeks, and then it's kind of a no harm, no foul situation. If he comes up and he's terrible, I mean, it's not like the Rangers have a whole lot invested in him or his future. If he comes up and Justin Foscue finally starts to hit the big league level, then maybe that is the solution for now. But this is just kind of where the Rangers are at this point, which is below 500 and having to play some really good baseball to get into the postseason, or even really keep their hopes of not selling at the deadline alive, which is all going to be determined in the next couple weeks. Coming up, we're going to talk about what the Rangers need to do in this second half, how well they need to play, and what it would look like to be sellers or buyers at this deadline right after this. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. After every single game, Jeff Biggs is with you with the Locked On Rangers postcast. That's in your Locked On Rangers podcast feed. It's coming to you live after every single game, getting a much-needed all-star break. And he is back tonight to talk about this first game against the Detroit Tigers in your Locked On Rangers podcast feeds on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Now, this Rangers team headed into the break, winning a series in Houston, winning a decent amount in their last couple of games. Not quite enough, though. And the offense has started to turn around in the last couple of weeks. Basically, since July, this offense has looked significantly better, even towards the latter half of June, which was the entire story for this whole season. The Rangers have the best team ERA in baseball. The best team ERA in baseball by a pretty wide margin. Through nearly 100 games. I believe they're at 97 games right now. They have a 3.28 ERA as a team. A 3.28 ERA as a team. They are 48 and 49. What a weird and frustrating team this has been. And the Rangers, they're not out of it by any means. It feels like it emotionally because it's been so incredibly frustrating. But the Rangers still have a chance to make the postseason. And again, when you have a team with an ERA that is the best in baseball, and you have Corey Seager on your team, and you have Adolis Garcia on your team, and you get yourself to the postseason, and you pair that great team ERA with an incredibly great top two in Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi, who shout out to the Rangers for giving Nathan Eovaldi that incentive bonus in his contract. I believe it's $100,000 for making the All-Star team because he was absolutely All-Star worthy. And I don't know why he didn't get announced with the initial team, which, by the way, was not fan voted. Like some said, oh, well, the fans just didn't know that Nathan Eovaldi was great. No, pitchers, for some reason, don't count as actual players and can't be voted on by the fans. They are just voted on by players and teams and Major League Baseball itself, the entity, the commissioner's office. So shout out to the Rangers for honoring that because it was absolutely a travesty that Nathan Eovaldi was not selected as an all-star this season. But I digress. When you get yourself to a postseason series, we've seen how you have Bruce Bochy helming it. You have two postseason absolute dogs in Seager and Adolis that could carry your offense through a postseason, and a relief corps that's pretty darn good. And if you added, Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker, whichever one isn't the number 4 starter at that point, to this pen in October, this is a scary team that nobody wants to play. But to get there, this Rangers team has to pass the Tampa Bay Rays, who they are 2 games behind right now, and they had to pass the Seattle Mariners, who they are 3.5 games back of right now. The Mariners have that 3rd wild card spot. The Rangers are 3.5 back there, and there's a lot of teams right on their heels, including the Angels and the Twins, who are half a game back, and then the Royals and Guardians, who are 1 game back. There are all but 3 teams that consider themselves in the hunt at this point. Now, the Rays have been in a free fall for the last 10 games. They've lost 4 straight and 8 of their last 10. The Red Sox have been absolutely on fire. They've won 10 in a row, but you look ahead of this Rangers team, I don't know if the Red Sox will keep this up. The Yankees are, not even that far up as the top wild card spot. There's 2 games between the top wild card spot and the bottom. So if you look between the Rangers and the top wild card spot, they are 5.5 back at the break with 60 plus games to go. That's absolutely doable. 65 games to go, if my math is mathing correctly. But they're going to have to win at basically a 60% clip from now until the end of the season. And they haven't even had a month-long stretch, a 30-game stretch where they've been even 500. But this is a team that is much better than the record. If it was taken as the expected wins-loss record versus their actual wins-loss record, the Rangers have a plus 47 run differential right now. That is better than the Toronto Blue Jays, who are leading the AL East. That is better than the Seattle Mariners by 15 runs. And, it's pretty close to the Houston Astros, who have just a plus 56 run differential after a couple of pretty lopsided losses to the Rangers in Houston this weekend. But what's going to determine whether the Rangers are buyers or sellers at the deadline? It's pretty simple to say that it's just this homestand, a 9-game homestand, and then 4 games, maybe it's 3 games, but it's basically 12, 13 games in between now and the trade deadline. You have to win right now. You have to win probably every single series in this 9-game homestand. 3 different 3-game series, one against the Tigers, one against the A's, one against the Braves. The A's are terrible right now, and the Rangers should absolutely be taking advantage. The Braves have been significantly underperforming. Their bullpen has been awful. Their offense has been just kind of regular bad since Ronald Acuna was back. Their starting rotation is just incredibly decimated with injuries. And then you have the Tigers, who have the best record in all of baseball. That series starts today, and the Rangers trot out their, either number 4 or number 5 starter, depending on who you would ask, in setting up their rotation in a way that they don't have their 2 best starters against the team with the best record in baseball. But they've got to win basically right now and continue to win and just keep piling on those wins. Because if you don't win during this stretch, then the Rangers could and should sell off at the deadline. And if the Rangers are buyers at the deadline, I don't see a scenario where they really are. I mean, they might buy a piece here or there, maybe a bat. But you look at this lineup, and I just talked about all 30 of my top 30 prospects and even who the Rangers drafted all this week. And if you listen to those episodes, you kind of read between the lines, you see okay, there's a lot of talent there, but it's not a particularly deep farm system. It's not a farm system where, you have enough depth to where you can trade away a couple guys and you're like, that's fine. This farm is just fine enough to sustain those kind of trades and to make a trade for a team that just has not shown that it has the juice to be a postseason team really basically at all this year. I mean, they kind of showed it in the last week, but they also had a bunch of really bad losses in the last couple of weeks, including that bullpen game where the Rangers got shut out in San Diego. I mean, this team has just been maddening to watch because the offense that we expected to carry this team has been awful, but the pitching staff has been exceptional. So this team needs to prove it right now that they shouldn't sell off, because at the deadline, I mean, where do you upgrade? I mean, you kind of say everywhere and also nowhere at the same time. Marcus Semien and Corey Seager in the infield. I don't see the Rangers, buying an infielder. In the outfield, Adolis Garcia has really come on as of late. Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford. You're not really going to upgrade that all that much. At catcher, trading for a catcher at the deadline is a really difficult thing to do because they have to learn an entire catching staff. And Jonah Heim and Kyle Higashioka, well, Higgy has really turned it on as of late. If he can, hit like this down the stretch, that would be a massive boost to this team. But even look at, kind of the depth spots of this infield. I mean, Jock Peterson is coming back at some point, and I would think all that time off to just reset his head and to come back to an offense that isn't struggling and doesn't have a struggling Corey Seager, where Jock feels like he has to single-handedly propel this offense to greatness. I think we'll take a lot of that pressure off. I think it's already done that for the rest of this offense, and I think that's a lot of why this team has just been hitting so much better for the last, month or so, because when Corey Seager, your best hitter, is hitting like your best hitter, everyone else is like, okay, I don't have to save the day. I just have to do my job. And Corey Seager will be awesome and will be awesome as well. And the same with Marcus Semien figuring it out as well. I mean, Marcus Semien going from the worst hitter in baseball for basically 2 months to having his OPS plus above league average at the All-Star break is just incredible how quickly he turned things around once he actually did turn things around. And so you look at this bullpen, there are some internal upgrades that are probably going to happen with Jon Gray coming in to this pen, with Josh Sborz being a part of this pen. There's definitely some upgrades there. In the rotation, it costs a lot to deal for a starter at the deadline. And at some point in August, hopefully, I mean, I think at some point this week, we're going to find out if and when Tyler Mahle will start throwing again. I think that's going to be very soon. He's, slated for a return in about the mid part of August. That's when he is eligible to return from the 60-day IL. Then you add him back in there, and then you have two of Leiter, Rocker, and Corbin as your final 2 spots in this rotation. And this pen doesn't really have any holes in it right now. I mean, with Chris Martin, Latz, Garcia, Armstrong, Webb, Milner, those are all really solid guys. And if you're putting one of those starters in Rocker, Corbin, or Leiter in the pen, that's not even in addition to Jon Gray and Josh Sborz. You might have some excess there for the Rangers to sell off one reliever, which feels crazy to say, because heading into the season, it looked like this pen was kind of built together with spare parts, and it's been incredible for the most part this year. And they even have Cole Winn waiting there in reserves, who's pitched 10 2/3 innings this year at the big league level and has, 17 innings at the big league level and has a 1.59 ERA. So even there are still, the only reason that he got sent to the minors was because he had pitched so much, because everybody had pitched so much. And it was an effort to bring Dane Dunning back up to just get some fresh arms when the Raiders played about a bazillion extra inning games in the span of a week. It just absolutely obliterated this bullpen. So this deadline is going to be just really interesting to see who the Rangers end up selling off, if they end up selling off anybody, if they end up being buyers at this deadline. This is, I don't really know other systems like that, but just based on the talent of this system and where it's been in years past, I'd say this is maybe like a number. There's no way this is a top 15 system in baseball. It's not a bottom 5 system, because if you have Sebastian Walcott, that alone means you cannot have a bottom 5 system, but it's maybe somewhere in the 18 to 22 range of the best systems in baseball. It's got some real good arms up there in the upper levels that have had some setbacks. I mean, with the graduations of Leiter and Rocker, I mean, this farm takes a step back for sure. With the graduations the year before of Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, and before that, it was Josh Young. Like, there's still some young talent here that is matriculated to the big league level, which is what you want. But this is a team in just such a weird spot, and it feels kind of basic to say. But in order to keep themselves from being sellers at the deadline, just win. Just win baseball games. There's never a bad time for a 9-game homestand that's undefeated. But there is also an especially good time. If the Rangers could just go ahead and sweep all 9 of these games, I feel like that would be a pretty good recipe to not be sellers at the deadline. I don't think that's going to happen by any means. But if you win 6 out of 9, that'd be nice. If you win 7 out of 9, that'd be super nice. If you only lose 1 game in this homestand, which I think is possible. Again, the A's are reeling, and if this Rangers offense has kind of livened up, they could definitely take advantage of what is a bad pitching staff by the A's. The Braves are an absolute mess right now. They might also be sellers at the deadline. Heck, they might be sellers, at that point by the 25th through the 27th when the Rangers play them. And then you go for 3 games in Anaheim, which hopefully the Rangers can take advantage of this time and not lose 2 stupid games like they did in that 4-game series right before the break. This is a team with the talent to make a run. It's going to take a lot. It is not by any means a guarantee that this team is going to make the postseason. But again, you've got one of the best managers, if not the best manager of all time at the helm, when you've got one of the greatest pitchers we've ever seen in Jacob deGrom, when you've got an offense full of guys that are due for some positive regression in such a big way as a team, I kind of like their shot to actually make a go of this and not be sellers at the deadline. And who knows, maybe even continue what we thought would be impossible of that every other year World Series title run for Bruce Bochy. Maybe there's still some odd year magic left for this team. That's going to do it for this show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy the second half of Texas Rangers baseball.